The Incredibles has gotten a recent blown up in popularity, mainly due to Pixar releasing audio files on characters that were killed by Syndrome, revealing some information on a lot of the heroes and putting into perspective how dark the Incredibles universe truly is. These tapes have been out for years, however, it just recently started springing up in popularity again, and never would I have thought in my time on YouTube I would be making a video about the Incredibles and comparing them to other universes like The Boys, Invincible, Marvel, DC, My Hero, and etc. So we will not only be diving into everything that's been revealed within these audio files, but seeing how this surprisingly does change the Incredibles' scaling and puts them in higher tiers that are closer to your favorite superhero universes. Anywho, let's just start yapping about this surprisingly dark universe that was for some reason made for children. Oh my god bro, Gamma Jacket's Pixar Homelander! Anywho, the story of Incredibles is pretty straightforward. If you guys aren't aware, well, allow me to put you on game. The old superhero Go, also known as Mr. Incredible, is no longer a hero after saving a man who was attempting to kill himself, leading into him then living the average life. Mr. Incredible, of course, as we know, eventually would get back into action, with him realizing that Syndrome, the same kid who idolized Mr. Incredible and wanted to be his sidekick, only for Mr. Incredible to say, "Fly home, buddy, I wear cologne." Oh my god, he's so tough. Which, of course, gave Syndrome the perfect reason for bro to start the greatest villain arc in his universe and quite literally commit mass genocide to the superhero race. You remember the funny scenes about Supes having accidents with their capes, which stems from the whole joke about Edna and capes? Yeah, well, what if I told you that these accidents, quote unquote, were actually cover-ups? Mr. Incredible would eventually discover the truth one day and would find the corpse of an old hero who was powerful in the glory days, that being GazerBeam. We'd then see him put on the wall the word Kronos, which, of course, as we know, would then lead into Mr. Incredible discovering the password, which would then lead into Mr. Incredible learning of the files that we just now only recently got access to. In these files, we find out that a lot of these superheroes who disappeared in accidents, quote unquote, were actually murdered by prototypes of the Omnidroid, the same droid that Mr. Incredible fights multiple times throughout the film. And as the previous prototypes were destroyed, the next one was made with modifications and built-in countermeasures to deal with what previously destroyed it. The V1 Omnidroid took out heavy hitters like Psywave, a rather sadistic and petty hero within the universe who would manipulate other men into falling for her. Mind you, these men would be with like some random girl that, let's say, picked on Psywave back in high school, meaning yes, Psywave is in fact that petty.
I had a crush on the quarterback of the football team who was also my best friend's boyfriend. I psych-waved him into asking me to the homecoming dance and breaking up with Shelly. And the more I practiced it, the shorter amount of time it took. You know, I could just sort of look at someone or look at a picture or see them passing by and think this thought or this action or whatever and
Pretty sickening, but due to her powers working on minds, this really didn't do much against the droid who is made of machine. Luckily, Macroburst was able to put down the very first Omnidroid, but unfortunately was killed by version 2. Version 2 was murdered by Downburst, who would then be murdered by version 3, but luckily HyperShock, a hero whose powers allow him to cause earthquake-like attacks, would manage to bring down version 3. He was sued by Mr. Incredible when destroying a national landmark while trying to stop a runaway bus. And we see through the audio files that it's implied that he definitely had an alcohol problem.
Yes, hello. I need some coffee. Very nice. No, I don't want tea. I want coffee and put some aspirin in it or something. How about coffee made from aspirin? You know, you people, you just don't do your homework. And look at this. What is this? Cheap. Spend a little money on your gear if you're gonna have a...
His powers, of course, are pretty hard to control, as he can cause earthquakes up to a level 6 on the Richter scale, which pretty much means one of the superheroes who would be out and about saving the day would also be the same guy capable of ending an entire society when he's having a bad day. Version 4 of the Omnidroid would murder HyperShock, however, that version of the Omnidroid would be defeated by GazerBeam. We mentioned him earlier, but now we could talk more about him because, my god, I actually feel really bad for him. He goes on to vent about how he's perceived as so strong and cool, but no one realizes how actually cursed he is. Due to how his powers work, if he looks looks at something intensely, he just shoots his lasers, meaning he was incapable of things like intimacy, as looking at someone in the eyes is a very important thing regarding one-on-one interaction with a partner, which without a doubt left an indescribable emptiness inside of GazerBeam, because on one hand he's looked at as a pillar of hope and power, and yet he himself ultimately feels powerless by having basic human interaction.
People tend to think it's a real picnic to have eyes that shoot lasers, but believe it or not, it's had its disadvantages. If I look at anything too intently, it tends to burst into flames.
It's really crazy to think about because this guy probably has a total of like 2 seconds of screen time, and yet bro is carrying this much baggage. As we find out in the movie, not only was he onto Project Kronos, but he does inevitably die to the next version of the droid, that being V5, who was of course ultimately taken down by the Homelander of the Incredibles universe, or so people say, that being Gamma Jack. Gamma Jack is a hero who specifically likes saving only women he finds attractive, and tends to avoid saving any other type of person. He even goes on to talk about how he hates fighting villains that he is attracted to or who are women, as it makes it harder for him to kill them. And he specifically gets irritated when the villain doesn't die in one blow. And yes, you heard me right, this guy not only murders any villain he comes across, but gets particularly upset when they don't want to go down too easily.
There's always going to be a lot of collateral damage. There's lots of villains, and there's lots of villainous deeds going on at any given time. Part of my job is to prioritize which villains I'm going to combat. You know, so, I take a look around, I see if there's any good-looking women who need to be rescued immediately, and then I sort of start from there and work my way down the list. You know, if you've got Tubby Joe Schmo over there with a laser pointed at his head, he might have to wait in line a little while.
His powers allow him to vaporize / disintegrate things from over 100 meters away, and he has a rating of 7.9. For reference, this would mean he's up there with the likes of GazerBeam and even Prime Mr. Incredible during the events of the Glory Days. Unfortunately, he would be defeated by a version 6 of the Omnidroid, which had no data of actually losing to any superheroes, as far as we know. But Syndrome ends up making a V7 and then updates it again, resulting in the V8 Omnidroid. And this was the same Omnidroid that Mr. Incredible initially beat, before of course the V9 is able to take him down. It's clear with each prototype, Syndrome improved on the Omnidroid, whether it was physical or had specific resistances, allowing it to pretty much go up against any particular superpower and superhero in that universe. Which is just absolutely ridiculous to take in. This kid got told he smells bad and to fly high, and this resulted in him having motivation to wipe out the entire superhero race, who mind you all individually had families and people they cared about, then proceeded to murder every superhero or friend that knew Mr. Incredible, and then attempted murdering his entire family in order to psychologically break the one dude he idolized. Oh, and did you guys forget that this takes place in a kids movie? If you did not mention any context about this being a Pixar movie or this being Incredibles related, I would be expecting you guys talking about The Boys or Invincible. Now, with this lore established, let's talk about Mr. Incredible or the Incredibles in general, and how strong they actually are and how they stack up against some of your favorite Supes. Now, the family is pretty easy to scale, as Violet can block attacks from the V10 Omnidroid, and based on how fast Dash moves, the amount of kinetic energy he outputs is over 1 kiloton. And due to him not instantly splattering whenever he's running, his durability at the very least should scale to this. Elastigirl has saved the kids from explosions that they more than likely would have died to, and Mr. Incredible is the physically most durable person in the family. And mind you, the strongest Omnidroid that was making Mr. Incredible struggle a lot couldn't initially break Violet's barriers. The same Omnidroid that should just generally be above the likes of the same one that took out HyperShock and Gamma Jack. Gamma Jack and HyperShock, due to their powers, both baseline have enough power to wipe out entire towns, due to Gamma Jack being able to atomize anything within 100 meters, and HyperShock's earthquakes going up to a level 6 on the Richter scale. However, this is baseline for at least HyperShock, as depending on the amount of energy the earthquake actually has, a level 6 earthquake on the Richter scale can be as low as town level to potentially being able to generate over 200 megatons of TNT, which is more than enough energy to wipe out large cities and even mountains. And mind you, again, Mr. Incredible defeated a much more advanced Omnidroid than the versions that killed both of these heroes. Heroes like Universal Man, who apparently can become nearly as dense as a black hole. So all I'm saying is Mr. Incredible's universal and he beats Omni Man. Oh yeah. I'm just kidding. We don't really ever get to see Universal Man's powers, so I'm not going to focus on him too much. But generally, I do believe town/city level is the baseline for most of these Supes, considering we also have heroes like Thunderman or Thunderbird, I forgot the guy's name, but pretty much he can create intense storms, which does require city levels of energy. So bare minimum, Mr. Incredible, and yes, by extension the family, should be able to block or generate over town levels of energy, potentially Mr. Incredible highballed being mountain level. Meaning your GOAT Mr. Incredible, lowballed or not, is beating the bricks out of Homelander. But more than likely is probably not stronger than any of the characters I mentioned, like Invincible or All Might, who display these levels of power that Mr. Incredible showcases while suppressed. However, it's kind of crazy that these guys are even this strong to begin with, and the fact that this verse even has lore like this. I would have assumed that this verse at best was like large building or city block. And generally, this is what the consensus is, disregarding the extra lore with the Incredibles. Now, let's talk about speed, which is pretty easy to break down for them. Mr. Incredible and the other Supes, without even utilizing the likes of Dash, the fastest member of the family, they're able to weave and dodge lightning/electricity at pretty close ranges, putting their speeds around that hypersonic to massively hypersonic and at least reaction and combat speed. And Dash specifically in a commercial, I know a lot of you are going to be like, bro, it's a commercial, but this commercial was greenlit by Pixar and thus by extension canon to Dash. He was able to casually run to the Great Wall of China within a few seconds, which regardless of you lowballing or highballing the calc, this feat comes out to around sub-relativistic, or specifically around 1 to 5% the speed of light. Considering the much slower characters who don't have super speed or reflexes are weaving electricity/lightning, I think this tier for Dash's speed isn't ridiculous to say. Now, the Incredibles universe has a variety of unique abilities. I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, we have a guy who can create large earthquakes on a Richter 6 level. We have Gamma Jack, whose radiation blast can range from over 100 meters. We have a guy who can become as dense as a black hole. Characters who can control weather, have super flight, air manipulation, laser beams, and of course, the ability to be much faster and freeze the opponent. Oh yeah, Frozone solos! Seriously though, all jokes aside, the Incredibles verse is surprisingly very powerful and super underrated. Mr. Incredible, despite being the strongest in his respective universe, would only end up as a decent mid-tier at best in verses like My Hero, One Punch Man, Invincible, and etc. However, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. Like, without a doubt, in My Hero and One Punch Man, he would be at the top of the hero list. And if we think Mr. Incredible is mountain level at his peak, he might damn well be dragon level or just barely reaching that tier. And of course, in the verse of Invincible, I feel like he would realistically do a lot better than most of your average Guardians of the Globe members, and even against the low tier street tier fighters of Marvel and DC. Mr. Incredible would put up some pretty decent numbers. I don't think he's just gonna like get one-shotted by Punisher or something. These guys are slept on, and I'm not gonna lie, this was a very fun video to make, as this movie was one of my favorites growing up, and especially for my mom. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this breakdown, and Mom, if you watch this video, I hope you're proud.